Survivor Season 47 has proven to be one of the most chaotic and confusing yet, and Episode 9 proved just that, so let's get into this. Okay, so first off, we kind of have the after tribal of the previous episode, which obviously the big deal was everyone left, decided to kind of gang up on Sam and Sierra left. So this left Sam very confused and very betrayed.
Yeah, and Sam and Rachel both definitely blindsided. And then especially with Andy kind of, I'll say leading the charge. I don't feel like he fully led it. He thinks he led that, but, and I definitely, you know, Sam was very much like mad but didn't show it. And I like that he kind of held that. And even Saul was like, you know, I'm happy that Sam, you know, was just like, not angry and showing that anger all the time.
I do think that I agree with you. I think that Sam handled it very well, and I don't think that Rachel did. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but Rachel's playing a very dicey game in my opinion, and I'm not, like, I like her, but I'm like, I don't know if she's gonna make it far because I think she's getting in her own way.
I feel like she's had a lot of luck currently on her side, and eventually that luck will run out.
Yeah, I think so too. So this immunity challenge was very interesting. So they get a note back at camp that's basically like, hey, pair off into 5 pairs, and then when you get to the challenge, you'll learn more. So they get there, and we've seen this in seasons like prior, I feel like, especially in the new era, but essentially they get there, and they will compete in duos up until the very last round. So then 3 of the duos will get knocked out in the end, and then the final 2 duos will compete, and they'll basically have like that classic Survivor challenge where they have to basically hold their balance.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we've seen this one before. And I know. It's definitely like, you know, the endurance that they want it to be, but also at the same time, I'm kind of like, this is kind of boring to watch.
Yeah.
Well, and then one part where Jeff's like, you don't know what your people are doing, but then he's like, oh, so-and-so's really looking like they're right now. It's like, Jeff, you're literally telling them what their competition is doing.
It was really interesting, though, because I feel like we've seen, like, different physical, I guess, attributes, if you will, from different people.
Yeah.
And this, like, definitely kind of shook it up a little bit, I felt like, because you had, like, after the first round, I guess, it was Kyle and Gabe, and then you had Saul and Teeny, and then Genevieve and Sue, and everyone else was out. But it was interesting because it's like Sue, you know, stepped up a few episodes ago or whatever it was, and we were kind of shocked by that. And Genevieve has like kind of been on my radar, but she hasn't really proven anything physically. And then Saul and Teeny, I think, shocked everyone because first of all, they're like totally imbalanced as far as like sizing and kind of stature and stuff goes. And then Gabe and Kyle, you kind of felt like we're going to do well. So it was interesting to see how that all panned out. And so then at the end, it's Gabe, Kyle, Teeny, and Saul that are competing. And Gabe ends up winning, which was crazy because it came down to Gabe and Kyle. And this is the first individual immunity that Kyle has not won this entire season.
And when it came down to between Kyle and Gabe, I was rooting for Kyle because, like I said before, I don't care for Gabe. I don't know what it is about him, but something about his character just does not sit right with me.
Yeah.
I couldn't pinpoint it, though.
Yeah, so here's what's interesting, too. So Gabe wins, and then the first 4 that were voted out now have to go and do this, like, they go on the journey or whatever, and they have to play this little game against each other, and the person that loses their vote. And you and I were kind of talking before this, and it's like, first of all, the whole losing the vote thing is getting really annoying.
Right.
Because I'm like, it is so pivotal, and that's why the producers are doing it, is like to make it interesting, I guess, quote unquote. Like maybe there's someone that's like really pivotal to the game right now, and like they're gonna lose their vote.
But it's every episode.
It's every episode, and I'm like, I mean, it's so annoying.
It would make sense if maybe 2 or 3 times a season somebody lost a vote. But like every episode seems like a lot.
I know, and so for that game, it's Caroline, Rachel, Andy, and Sam, and they basically do like a card stacking game.
It's kind of like Jenga.
Yeah, honestly.
Except
so
reverse.
The person to make it fall. And so Caroline ends up losing her vote, which honestly I kind of thought was a good person to lose it because she's playing a really solid game.
Yeah, she's so insulated and like somebody also said, Sue's very insulated. I feel like those are the 2 most insulated people where they feel very safe.
No, I agree.
Don't have any vulnerability right now.
Yeah, so that was interesting. On the flip side, you had the people that, or I guess the final 4 or whatever, of the immunity challenge doing the reward that they were enjoying. And you have weirdo Saul and Gabe having this burp contest. I'm like, you guys, this is too much.
I didn't like that. It was kind of gross.
It was really odd. So here's what's crazy though. So after they're all back at camp, pure chaos ensues. And I feel like chaos is kind of the theme of this season. Like, you just never really know where it's going to go. It's very unpredictable. Every week, the person I think is going to go is not the person that actually ends up going. So anyway, Genevieve kind of starts out when it's just her and Sue, and she's like, what if we get Saul? And then, when everyone gets back to camp, you've got Sam's name thrown out, you've got Saul's name thrown out, you've got Kyle's name thrown out, you've got Sue's name thrown out. There's all these different people. And then, of course, you've got, you know, still alliances from former tribes, and then these new things that keep happening because people keep being blindsided. So you really have no idea where this is going to go. But what was interesting that I really respected editing-wise is that they literally show, like, everyone left is still kind of arguing, debating, whatever, and right before they're supposed to go, because essentially you go to tribal when the sun goes down. So then they get to tribal, okay, and it doesn't stop. I mean, literally, Jeff starts tribal council, and instantly Saul whispers to Genevieve, and then, you know, it just keeps going. And so it's like Jeff's talking to one person, and while he's talking to that person, everyone else is whispering. Right. And that just shows you, one, I think how hard everyone's playing, and two, how interesting of a season it is that this is happening every single tribal council, where, like, people are never really sure. People have to make sure what's going on.
And I think it shows, too, that, like, alliances aren't, like, fully solidified, and everybody knows it. They're like, you know, we talked about this, but I don't know if I trust that.
What I found interesting, too, was how a lot of them seemed like they were really strong in who they wanted to go back at camp, but when they got to tribal, a lot of them hopped in the boat of like, I just want to vote correctly, which I thought was really interesting because you saw like Sam move towards that, you saw Gabe move towards that, you saw Teeny kind of struggle on what to do, and I thought that was an interesting tactic because I'm like, just stick to what your gut is. Like, you guys, if you band together, you could get who you really want.
I feel like that's happened a lot though this season, where they're like, oh, going in with this name, and then they get there and they're like, well, maybe I should go with what the tribe, I think the tribe's going with. And then it's kind of like, well, then you're kind of messing up your own game, voting out somebody that might be your alliance member.
I know, and so it's very interesting to see that play out. So what ends up happening, long story short here, is that Saul gets the majority of votes and Saul is sent packing. What's interesting about this is Saul was a strong player, but I don't know, I feel like there's people that I would think were bigger threats if I was in the game.
Oh, absolutely.
And maybe that's hard to know in the game because outside looking in, obviously.
Right. Okay, but here's the thing. This is the first time Kyle has been up for voting.
And he didn't even have a vote against him.
And yeah, this is the first time that he could have been out. And the only person
that brought him up was one of the other guys, I think, were the ones that wanted to get him out. Like, and then that kind of died out. And I was like, I don't understand any of your guys' ammo here. And then also it's like you look at someone like Caroline and Sue, who have been close since day one. I'm like, go after that duo. They're going to take each other to the end. And so I just don't think a lot of these people are playing very smart, which is kind of like annoying to me. And while Saul may be like a physical threat because of his size, I'm like, he hasn't done a whole lot. He really wasn't that well like insulated or connected. And then also Teeny just voting off our allies is a very weird move. And I think if she makes it to the end, she's going to have a really hard time making a case for herself because she voted out Sierra, who she said was like her sister, and then she's now voted out Saul, who she swore was her #1 ally in the game back at camp. So I'm like, girl, what is your game?
I can't see her making it to the final, though.
No. So in the preview for the next week, everything looks just even more crazy. I mean, it looks like there's 1,000 names thrown out again. So we will see what happens. Hope you're joining us along for this crazy ride of season 47. So tune in tonight, and Unscripted will be right back.